So we have Paul Surin from IBM, Marzia Bolpagni from Mace, and Frank Weiss from Oracle. So thank you very much all for joining us for this discussion. Much appreciated. Great, thank you guys. So just to highlight now, as has been the case throughout the whole event, you can ask questions of our speakers, and we'd encourage you to do so. So if you get those in, I will keep my eye on that and I'll get to as many as I can. So I'd like to start then by sort of saying that we all know the benefits of BIM, but obviously adoption rates kind of differ kind of wildly from country to country, with some kind of really quite far along their journey and some towards the start. But before we begin, I wondered, kind of, does BIM mean the same thing to people in Europe as, say, perhaps it might do in North America? And I wonder if maybe I come to you first on that, please, Paul.
No, I don't. I see the difference. I mean, in US, I know the common word has been used, virtual design construction, and quite often colleagues, they refer BIM as a tool, and they're seeing it more as the kind of modeling a piece, not really as a process. And in Europe, I think it's getting better, but I would say we still see a big differences between the different countries in terms of what BIM is. And like I said earlier, I quite often see businesses as BIM being usually looked after within marketing departments, and not really within the core business or within IT, which I think that's where it should belong, should be around IT and digital, not marketing.
And Marzia, I'd just like to ask you this as well, please, because I know you said in your presentation about all the different countries where you are working at the moment. Is that the same for you?
Yeah, I confirm what Paul was saying. There is a different understanding. Based also from historical point of view, we know that BIM and all this topic started as mainly as application of tools, and in some countries they still remain, but instead in others they really understand that it's all about information and better information management, really. So we hope that especially developing countries, they start already, from the knowledge of others, so they start already implementing in an advanced way, not to start again with BIM is about just tools and so on. But we also noticed that there is a lot of marketing, as Paul was mentioning, so is also creating confusion in the message. So is the reason why it's really important to work on standardization. So as Paul was saying, both of us, we are really active on this, but because it's important to have common standards at international level, so both at initiatives such as SEN level, ISO level, and also the BIM Excellence Initiative and so on, is really to create frameworks that are applicable at international level, so that especially for companies that work across different markets, that is easier.
Okay, great, thank you. And question for you, Frank, perhaps slightly broad, but hopefully interesting as well. I just wonder, for those countries that have perhaps embraced BIM, are there any kind of common factors that maybe that we could highlight?
Well, first of all, I think I'm not sure if the discussion around the BIM as it is understood for decades is still the right understanding. What we have learned over the last couple of years is that the challenges we have in front of us, like the digital twin or sustainability, I think nobody here on the line will believe that this can be achieved without a better information management, building information management, or digitization. The model is here just a specific element in this component to play, and through the different attributes and dimensions we have, this is really offering us this to make this invisible visible. Now, to your question, there are different drivers to push it forward and to make it attractive. It has been mentioned before that you can work with incentives, which has happened in Singapore, with incentives for specific projects where the government has said there is like $500,000 of Singapore dollars, which will be spread between the 10 trades in a project, and they get like an investment for this first period to get BIM educated. Another one is definitely if countries set that as mandates, like it happened in April in 2016 in the UK, in Germany for infrastructure projects, or even from next year on, in Germany, it's mandatory for all governmental, even the vertical construction projects. But what impressed me a lot is how it happened in Netherlands. Because in Netherlands, where the maturity is very high, it really came a lot from the industry. So the general contractors understood there is a strong business case and they don't have to be convinced, right? Just use it because it's for the sake of using it. They realized we can improve a lot. And that's, to me, the convincing argument to move forward.
Okay, great, thank you. And I can see we've already got in a couple of questions in from the audience, which is great. Thank you very much. So I'll get to one of these straight away. So the person says, I'm quite confused about BIM. Does the panel think its real use is in the design aspect of a project, or can it benefit the actual construction process? So would anybody like to jump in and answer that?
I mean, I'll quickly jump in. I'd like to say, I think it needs to be looking at from the whole life cycle perspective, but also let's stop looking at it as a project base. You know, we talk about this big BIM adoption 2016, as Frank said, in the UK. Has it been success? I don't think so. How many BIM projects we really have delivered? I don't think many. You know, it's back to Singapore. Yeah, 900, maybe 9 million or 900,000. It's a $9 trillion industry. So there's not enough investment been made. And then some companies across Europe claiming being BIM certified. Then you look at the way they deal with information. Sometimes they don't even know how to store documents, you know, safely, and how to name their documents internally. So this is going back to that end-to-end view, and not just to looking at, oh, BIM is great for design, BIM is great for construction. Oh, look, we have a BIM certified project, fantastic. I think that's been the biggest mistake. And I feel we should share more the failure and look at KPIs. Are we really that mature as, you know, 6 years since the BIM level 2 mandate in the UK? My answer is I wouldn't think so. Okay,
thank you very much. So obviously there's so many different things that we could talk about. I'd like to kind of quickly touch on, you know, obviously the title of this is kind of the different barriers to adoption. You know, is one of those biggest barriers the cost in terms of purchasing the software and the training staff? And is that something that's starting to decrease or not? I don't know if that's something that Marzia, you could answer for us.
Yeah, sure. I think that one of the biggest adoption, it's not myself, but again, there are a lot of studies that confirm that it is really about the people, and they are scared to change. They don't really understand, and that is the main barriers. Is really the behavioral change, because there are a lot of studies and proof regarding the savings for different usage. You know, coming back to the question that some of you asked before, yes, it can be used for construction. Get in touch if you want with me on LinkedIn. I can provide several links of example video reports on how it can be implemented in construction. For different uses, it can be used to study the construction sequences for health and safety. It can be used for the also sustainability purpose. I think that probably we'll go back to this later on. Also to mention productivities, to reduce the clash detection. There are a lot of really different usage. And the barriers is really, one is of course, especially for the small, medium enterprises, the cost, the initial cost. You know, they need to train people, define the processes internally, you know, buy the software, understand how to set up the software, because not just buying a tool, but also to make it working for that particular project. Yeah, I see that tools are starting to reduce, but it's important to promote more an open approach into interoperability, and not just to focus on, silos. I think that there is a big initiative regarding the common data API that probably also Frank can say something, because his company is also working on that. But the point is really how we can integrate a more solution, and how we can use those tools with the tools that we have. So as part of our services in Mace, we help clients to study how BIM can be integrated with the current way of working, not to create another silo separate.
Great, thank you. And as well, Frank, just obviously we're talking about kind of cost there being a barrier. I wonder, I mean, is it a cultural thing that kind of maybe needs to change as well in contractors? Is it, it could be quite a big change in the way that they work. Is that something that you've seen?
Well, I think it all starts with motivation. There is no reason to use BIM for the sake of using the methodology or the technology. Our industry moves if the dollar can be achieved better, and it's increasing the quality. So the challenge what we face at the moment, like I said in my presentation in the beginning, the order books are full. So when order books are full, this is kind of contradictory to the approach to say, hey, we have a crisis and we have to move to a better methodology to do so. What we have seen in a couple of examples is, for instance, in engineering companies, in mid-size, like 1,000, 1,500 people, that the CEOs or the COOs told us, we get more and more requirements and requests from customers. And if we do not improve through technology, these customers are moving on. They are looking for different suppliers or specialists. So they have the pressure to be more, they have to do more work with one person. And this is only possible by this. But I come back to my initial statement. The motivation is the key element that the industry and the GCs move on, right?
Okay, great, thank you. So we've had some more questions on the Q&A, so I'll get to one of those now. So the question is there a risk that BIM and other digital technologies will widen the gap between large and SME contractors? And how do we ensure that that doesn't happen?
Well, maybe I can just jump in this. We just ran a Building Smart International survey. And what we have seen is that the bandwidth of the adoption is not just with the big companies. So we cannot say it's just the tier 1 who are applying it. It's tier 1 contractors, tier 2 contractors, tier 3 contractors, tier 4 contractors. And there's a big mix and variety happening at the moment. Even in that survey, which spanned participants from the United States to several countries in Europe, to Australia, New Zealand, and the Middle East, I would say it's in all of the areas, and in particular standardization, where I'm happy to see that Paul and Marzia in particular also does a great job in helping the industry. This also enables the SMEs much better, because they can benefit from those standards and they are not kind of cornered or trapped in some proprietary formats, which is difficult to work with. Everyone should work with the best product, and that's why we need those standards to really push that forward.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So there's something else as well. So just some sort of talking to people in the industry, there seems to sometimes be a sense that there might be certain projects that kind of make kind of BIM mandatory, and then maybe a contractor include it to win a contract, but then perhaps they might not use it, or might not use it to its fullest capability. Is that something that that anyone on the panel was kind of seen, and is there anything that we can do to kind of work with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can quickly comment I see it. I see it almost on every project. You see it. And again, going back to that problem that they have their digital engineering teams, which they kind of do the ticking exercise of BIM taking exercise of fulfilling the standards, and then on the other hand, their IT and their environment is working manually and disconnected. So I think, again, we really need to start looking at it from an end-to-end perspective, and businesses need to understand, why should I adopt BIM? Not just because I want to deliver, or I must deliver project in BIM, or I must be, or a contractor is asking me for UK BIM framework compliance. I think that's number one. And number two, it's vital that we educate SMEs in a plain language, because 80% of this industry are SMEs. It's not the large contractors, it's small, medium enterprises. And right now, if you look at their adoption, I think it's minimal. They still go on and issue invoices in PDF, send invoices when they come from their building sites, do commissioning sheets on a piece of paper, using CSCS cards just for health and safety, nothing else. They don't document, enclosing cavity walls, which then leads to disasters. Then that's linked to, to disasters, to issues, to performance gap, you name it. So I think we need to look at it really from an end-to-end perspective.
Great, thank you. That's very interesting, kind of what you're saying about that kind of plain language. I mean, one of my questions was going to be, is it part of our role as the industry to kind of be talking to people about the productivity benefits and the other benefits that this can bring, but perhaps in a more of a kind of straightforward way, because obviously it can all get kind of quite complex. So is that something that we could all perhaps be doing a bit better, or are there steps already there to address this?
I can jump on that. So it is really, really important, because I always say BIM is not just for the BIM people, it's for everyone. So if we want really to make an impact and to make the change, so in order to engage with everyone, the language is so important. So as part of my day-to-day job is really to explain to people, what is, this about, what in particular, what does it mean for them? Because most of the time, people, they don't want to hear about BIM in general. Project manager come to me and say, okay, what about what I need to do? What is my responsibilities? The QS, like, okay, how my job is changing. It should be really, specific for them. And is the reason why, as part of the UK BIM Alliance work that we have been doing, is really to simplify. Recently, we published videos, and I invite everyone to have a look if you didn't already. BIM to Basics, where really we explain the definition and we explain the benefits and so on. So yes, it's important. BIM can be really another language, because there are a lot of acronyms, a lot of concepts that is important to get familiar with. But at the same time, we need to make it more accessible, so that to speak a language that everyone can understand.
That's great, thank you. And there's another question which has come through onto the Q&A, and I don't know if you would like to have a go at this or not, Frank, but it talks about kind of is there a benefit in terms of sustainability for BIM, and it asks if maybe this could help the adoption of BIM, obviously given that sustainability is, as we all know, kind of arguably the mega trend in the world.
I think it's definitely one of the new drivers, because sustainability is one of the contemporary tasks, which if we look at the current topics, even in the world, in different timescales, it's different in the UK or to the United States or to China or to Germany. However, all of the countries have agreed on those goals. They will be broken down into the industries, well, it moves to the clients, to the governmental sector and the private clients. And they have to break it down to their projects and their assets. And definitely, if we just want to envision, how can we, for instance, achieve that in 2050? When it is 2050, it means every asset and every project should be carbon neutral from January 1st, 2051. That's not a lot of time. And the model orientation or the digitization is a big driver in this. So that's why when we speak to customers who are at the beginning of a journey, we say, hey, let's go a first step. You do not have to become fully fledged, 3D, 4D, 5D, ND from the jump, but get started with the first maturity level, do the first educations, and apply it in your projects. And we believe that the big step forward will come from customers. Customers with that driver of sustainability will push it stronger in the market, because if you as an SME are not able to handle these requirements properly, it's maybe hard in the future to get a job in that particular area. And I mean, even also in quality, that you cannot deliver bad quality in the models like it is in some markets, that it is also a decent quality. And I believe the approaches from the software industry and also from consulting makes it easier and easier. While you have paid lots of money for BIM execution plans or exchange information requests a couple of years ago, nowadays you more or less can download them from the web. So you get already so many templates for free. So you can start easy and then grow from step to step. So that would be definitely our impulse. So in summary, for sustainability, absolutely an element what we see from the beginning for simulation purposes, and then from the project development, construction, and to have control in operations.
Okay, great, thank you. I've just sort of got a question about kind of different kind of countries around the world. Obviously, you guys are involved in tech and kind of BIM on kind of different levels. Do you kind of think that in a couple of years' time, there'll be more and more governments that will be kind of mandating that and kind of saying that that they expect kind of BIM to be included in kind of part of their projects?
Yeah, I mean, I would say hopefully, but also I would say it's gonna be coming from the users like you and me. They will be demanding, and you look at second-time home buyers, they demanding information about what they're buying. Right now, you purchase a house or a flat, which is mostly probably one of the biggest investment in our lives, and look what you get. You get very poor information. You get generic sort of documentation. So governments here would help, but again, governments are looking at big projects where the issue is lying with the simple things like building a house. So I believe it'll be the insurers, the banks, it'll be us as users demanding a quality and safety. So then we don't get another Grenfells and other disasters like that. And also you look at EU is trying to do the same thing. If you look at EU procurement directive, they will start requiring digital information. And last comment I would say, which is maybe one of the barriers as well for SMEs to do that, is the expensive standards. Standards. If you look at standards, we work on standards. I love working on standards regulation. But again, I've been speaking to lots of SMEs, and in order to get the standards, to buy the standards, it costs a lot of money. So that's another things we need to start looking at. So there's a lot of problems, but yeah, government can help, funding support can help from governments, but also from within the industry.
Okay, great. And then kind of picking up on kind of Paul's answer there, I'm just curious to know, obviously. Hey
Andy, can I just offer?
Oh, sorry, of course you can. Yeah.
And I can just offer a contrary consideration in this. So what we also observe at the moment is that the funding of projects is changing a lot. So if you want to get attractive rates, like green money, you have to comply with specific governance rules. Yeah, the magical abbreviation is ESG, environmental, social, and governance. So what we also hear that this push will come from the funding market. I agree what Paul said about the assurances as well. They want to know what is in a building. So that means from the real top, the pressure will come in addition, which is not saying what Paul said is not valid, but I think we will observe it from two ways. From the top, there will be a pressure, and from downwards, we have a demand. What goes faster is hard to say, but it is interesting to observe that these developments are taking place at the moment. And funding is coming from governmental for sustainable buildings, sustainable structures, etc. And again, it goes back then to information management. How can I report on it? Starting from the planning, and then also when I run it, that I'm in line with that. Just wanted to add that to the conversation.
No, that's great. Thank you. So I've just sort of really got sort of one more question then, and then I'll put it to you, Marzia. Just to kind of ask, really, obviously technology kind of moves so quickly, you know, the answers that we just heard from kind of Frank and Paul have kind of maybe touched on it already, but I just wonder kind of where, you know, in 5 years' time or 10 years' time, you would hope or you would expect kind of BIM to have moved on to.
Yeah, so I think that even if our industry is quite slow in changing, since I, started my career, I saw the improvement. And this change is now happening, suddenly. I think that's particularly with the topic of the climate change, as I was mentioning before, we need to find different ways. It's really about surviving. And I don't want to be dramatic, but really we need to think in a different way. And at the moment, it's just champions such as Frank, Paul, myself, yourself, they're trying to change the industry. But it will become a priority for everyone. It's a little bit as a COVID, at the beginning, using remote working instead of traveling and to use the web calls. It will arrive to a point that there is a necessity to improve our efficiency. We cannot continue to deliver the project in the way that we have been doing in the past 30, 50 years. So I think that in the next 5 years, really, the situation will be different for different reasons, not just because is possible to do it, but it will be the only way to be able to control and to deliver better buildings and infrastructure as well.
Great, thank you. So I feel like we should wrap up there, given that I think we've sort of overran by about 10 or 15 minutes, but it's been a really interesting discussion. And I'm very grateful to all of the three speakers for staying on for this roundtable. It's been great. So thank you to Paul, to Marzia, and to Frank. And I'd like to hand back now to our host, Alex Taylor.